Hello, welcome to another video where we're going to take a look at 10 teams from top players. This time the theme that we took is players that had success in previous play Pokemon tournaments. Obviously, those players must be good, right? Those players must have knowledge. Amongst them, there's also other content creators and like casters. Let's take a look at some of the teams here. I'm going to run through a few here. The first team that we have here is from the runner-up of the Pittsburgh Regional Championship, which is Lyle Jeffs. He already was known to be a really good Go Battle League trainer, and it's no surprise that he got to second place there. Now, he's running a team that's very balanced and requires very little safe switching. Usually, you always stay in the lead with the Deoxys. The only Pokemon that's really a problem for this team is the Frostlass. Umbreon is not that big of a deal because the Deoxys can stay in and still put up a good fight because you have super effective counters. You don't need to say swap too often here. If you do, the one thing you really fear as Lickitung only is Registeel. Now, you do have Gligar to hard counter Registeel or take all the energy, so it does help a little bit, but it does make the situation difficult. And one good thing about this team is you basically have two Medicham monsters here. You can use regular or Shadow Gligar here, it doesn't really matter. Next thing that we have here is from Palasha, the Turin special event champion in 2023, and she's running Tapu Fini, Shadow Gligar, and Alolan Sandslash. Now, the one Pokemon that's really difficult for this team is Spark Lantern in the lead. Shadow Gligar actually puts up a really good fight there, but it's not ideal because if you swap Gligar into the Lantern, they could just throw a Surf and then swap out. Tapu Fini, on the other hand, is a very good generalist, and I think that this team has a lot of balance in it. It's a little bit similar to Anhoff's concept, where you have Pelipper instead of the Gligar and Alolan Sandslash lead. It really just covers the lead very well, so that's why I do like this team. The next thing that we have here is an interesting one, because I believe that a Swampert Charizard core is one of the best right now, next to Medicham Lickitung, that really only thrives because of bulk. But Axon chooses for a Quagsire lead. Now, our world champion knows what he's doing, right? He wants to counter that Registeel and the Lantern better. It does a little bit better than Swampert does. I also think Whiscash could be interesting because you now have Blizzard for the Prime Fly that is Gligar. So, really a lot of substitutes that you can use here. I do like the core of a Mud Pokemon plus Charizard. There's very few core breaks to this as well. The next team that we have here is similar to Palacios and Anhoff's previous team. She has another team that has Tapu Fini in it. And I think this is a very easy ABB team against Registeel. You bait it out with the Lickitung or the Tapu Fini. You clean up with the Gligar, and you're probably good. I think Lickitung plus Tapu Fini is a really good core if you don't have Registeel on it. So obviously, Spark can be a little bit difficult, especially with Water Gun, because it also defeats the Gligar quite consistently. But then against Water Gun Lantern, the Tapu Fini has more play. The last team that we have is from the Bozo of the Year. It's Pranav. You may know him from his Twitch stream or as a regular competitive player. He hasn't played as much lately, but he is back this season. And he's running a very bulky team here with the Cresselia and the Diggersby. I think Vigoroth is interesting in the current meta. There's not a lot of Trevenant at all anymore. There's not a lot of Frostless in the current meta, though. That might change soon. And I think that Cresselia plus Diggersby is a good core regardless. You can run Mudshot, Fire Punch, Earthquake, Scorching Sands, Quick Attack, all of it. I think every single moveset really works. But I think with this team, you probably want something like Mudshot, and then either Fire Punch or Hyper Beam and then Scorching Sands. You really need Mudshot to be better against Steel type, because if you run Quick Attack, I think you lose a 0 shield against Registeel, which you don't want. Now, I do think this team is good and bulky, but you need to bait out Medicham with that Diggersby. Those were some of the Open Great League teams that I have for you from all these top battlers that we have there on the left. I'll put some links in the description. Also, check out Rice's video because he has 5 more teams that he will go through here from this graph. Now, I'm not done exactly yet because next week is also the Psychic Cup, and we also have a graph for the Psychic Cup. Now, there's not a lot of variation in the Psychic Cup, and we don't have like a lot of spicy things on it either. We don't have a Victini. I think Victini isn't per se spicy, but they didn't have to be on this graphic. I still think it's pretty good. And we didn't use Alolan Raichu, that I think has a niche, but might be difficult to play for newer players. Let's take a look at these teams here. First team that we have is from the Bochum caster, Nighttime Clasher. I like to include him because he has been playing much better lately as well. He's reached top cut 3 times in a row, I believe, right now in North America, which is really good. And he's leading the Galarian Slowking, which I think is like by far the best Pokemon in this league. It charges to Shadow Ball quite quickly, which hits super effective on many Pokemon. It resists Charm from Gardevoir. The one thing you do fear, though, is the Malamar, and Nighttime Clasher covers that with Double Fairy in the back. He does run Mega Horn on the Galarian Rapidash, which I find maybe not the best attack right now, but it could hit for surprise on some psychic types. On the other hand, like high horsepower would be much better, in my opinion, against opposing Galarian, Slowbro, or Slowking. So it's up to you what you really want to run on it. If the opponent doesn't shield anything here, then your Shadow Gardevoir basically is just the last resort here. So remember when I said I think Galarian Slowking is one of the best Pokemon in this league? Well, Conning Lionheart, my fellow official European caster, he decides to counter it a lot because the Malamar does very well against it. It also does well against Victini. And if the opponent decides to switch out, you have the Bruxish to counter it even harder later. Now, this Pokemon, or sorry, this team probably instant loses to Shadow Gardevoir, however. You don't see it a lot. But if you do, you have Malamar and Bruxish that are not great against. You probably want to throw a foul play with the Malamar, hope to get a shield or something, or maybe not, and then farm down with the Rapidash. Or you get a shield and hopefully get 2 bodies in with the Rapidash. It's very fragile against a Gardevoir, but it's really good against like Galarian Slowking, really good against Victini. So this team is like an offset team. Lundberger has many different variations of teams. She didn't want to include her double poison, but she did give me this team here. And this team has the Malamar Safe Switch, which is an interesting Pokemon because it should run Hyper Beam and Foul Play in this meta. Hyper Beam is preferred because you don't need Superpower for any Psychic type. So that kind of makes sense. And it one-shots like really fragile Pokemon too. So that's why Malamar here is the safe switch. You can run anything on that Galarian Rapidash. I just wouldn't recommend Play Rough, Mega Horn, or High Horsepower is preferred attack that you have there. And Poison Jab. Galarian Slowbro is the closer. It does very well against something like a Gardevoir that otherwise would tear through the front 2 Pokemon. So you kind of really need that. The next thing that we have is from me, Weedle, who beat me 3-0 at the Stuttgart Regional Championship. For the amount of crap that I give him on the podcast, I guess I'll say that just so he can have it on this video. Anyway, this team is the one that he got to experts with as one of the first in the world. I believe a few days ago I saw him at rank 3 on the leaderboards as well, which is incredible. And basically this team has like incredible charge attack pressure in the Malamar, the Galarian Rapidash, and the Slowking. You kind of need to shield everything from these Pokemon, right? Malamar hits super effective on about everything. The Galarian Rapidash hits hard, and especially with high horsepower coverage. And then Slowking has like Shadow Ball. I'm not surprised that this team, combined with this good player that is the Senior World Championship of 2022, it's no coincidence that they got this far. I think this team is really good. And the last team that I have here is from Maximilian, 4th place finalist in Barcelona, just barely enough to get a medal, and he's basically running the same team as me, Weedle, except that this team is better against Gardevoir. So if you really dislike Gardevoir, this team is probably the one for you. I think Slowking, again, one of the best Pokemon. Hyper Beam, Malamar takes shields or switch quite easily because about anything has shield Hyper Beam, and the Rapidash is a really good closer. He doesn't prefer Mega Horn or high horsepower, but he told me specifically do not run Play Rough as your second charge attack here. So yeah, that's the team Maximilian has. Basically the same, but great minds think alike, and I think that the order of a team can make a big difference. So yeah, those were the teams we have. This time we had both rotations covered, and we'll keep trying to do that as long as we have enough submissions from the people that we asked to do so. And that's a little bit difficult for Little Cup sometimes, but I think for Psychic Cup, now that we already had a week of it as well, people were more creative with these teams, and so we could supply you some as well. I hope you liked this video. I will drop the link in the description to these graphics, and hope you liked the video. See you in the next one. Bye.